The narration in this video is AI generated. While the Japanese and Uchinaguchi spoken in the video are not intended to be perfect, I have confirmed that the pronunciation is understandable to native speakers. The flags shown in the video are the current national flags. This video traces the history from Ryukyu to Okinawa, from Tode to Karate, and eventually to Karate, based on Japanese language sources. It includes a great deal of information not commonly available outside Japan. In particular, the history of karate prior to the late 1950s is situated in the pre-war and post-war periods of Japan and Okinawa, a time of significant upheaval. As such, many aspects of karate history lack primary academic sources. Even university research teams struggle with this era. Much of the history from this turbulent time is based on oral accounts and testimonies, which often leads to completely opposing theories about the same event. Please view it as one interpretation among many. There is no intent to glorify or discredit any particular school, organization, or individual. If you are aware of missing information or alternative theories, I would greatly appreciate it if you could share them in the comments. Karate originated in Okinawa, the southernmost prefecture of Japan. Surrounded by the ocean and blessed with a subtropical marine climate, Okinawa is warm and humid throughout the year. Historically, it was an independent kingdom known as Ryukyu, boasting advanced maritime skills and engaging in trade with China, Japan, Korea, and Southeast Asia. Through these exchanges, Ryukyu developed a distinct culture unlike that of mainland Japan. Karate, too, is believed to have evolved uniquely in Ryukyu as a result of such international interactions. As early as the 9th century, powerful local leaders emerged in different regions of Ryukyu, often competing for dominance. By the 11th century, a martial art known as Te is said to have existed, but due to the lack of primary sources, its exact nature remains uncertain and cannot be verified or dismissed as fiction. In the late 12th century, a man named Shunten became the first recognized king of central Okinawa, establishing the foundations of a state. Ryukyu began formal trade relations with neighboring countries, particularly China, Ming Dynasty, which became a key partner. In the 14th century, mutual diplomatic missions were exchanged. The village of Kume was founded during this time by Chinese immigrants, many of whom held key government positions and facilitated cultural exchange. Martial arts from southern China, especially Fujian, were introduced and gradually adapted locally into what became known as Todi, Tanghand, meaning Chinese martial art. By the end of the 14th century, it became customary for Chinese emperors to approve the enthronement of Ryukyuan kings, reflecting the depth of their relationship. In the early 15th century, Shohashi unified the three kingdoms of Ryukyu, forming the Ryukyu Kingdom. This ended the era of conflict and ushered in a prosperous age of trade. However, fearing uprisings, the kingdom banned the practice of martial arts and restricted weapon possession. As a result, Todi was passed down discreetly among the warrior class. In 1609, the Japanese Satsuma domain invaded and quickly subdued the Ryukyu Kingdom, forcing it into a dual subordination system under both Satsuma and Qing China. While the weapon ban continued under Satsuma, unarmed martial arts were not strictly prohibited, allowing Todi to survive in secret among the Ryukyuan elite. One of the most influential figures to emerge in the early 19th century was Matsumura Sōkon. Though diverging slightly from Todi, Matsumura's story is noteworthy. As a government official, he studied kenjutsu, swordsmanship, in Satsuma under Ijuin Yashichiro, and earned full mastery in the Gichin school. In 1836, he traveled to Beijing, where he reportedly studied Chinese martial arts under a palace instructor named Iwa, while also pursuing academic studies. Records from a Baguazhang lineage describe a Ryukyuan man demonstrating superior Japanese swordsmanship at Beijing's Shanpukuan in February 1839, defeating all challengers and receiving instructor-level recognition. Given that Matsumura was the only known Ryukyuan with such credentials at the time, he is widely believed to be this individual. These records note that Japanese swordsmanship relies on stillness and a lightning-fast, decisive blow, a deadly art requiring 10 times the discipline of Chinese martial arts, with few reaching true mastery. Matsumura is said to have later incorporated Gichin principles into Todi. The practice of striking a makiwara, striking post in karate, may have originated from Gichin-ryu's Tachiki Uchi, where practitioners repeatedly strike a standing tree. Gichin-ryu emphasized one-hit kill techniques, and this concept may have influenced karate's own ethos of one hit, one kill. This style was passed down among the aristocracy of Shuri and came to be known as Shuri-te. According to Motobu Choki, training in Shuri-te began with techniques executed at 60% power, prioritizing speed above all. The other major lineage, Naha-te, developed in Naha, especially in Kume village, where many Chinese immigrants lived. This style retained more influence from Fujian martial arts and featured hard qigong-like conditioning, use of tools like the chishi for strength training, and distinctive breathing techniques. A key figure of this style was Higayona Kanryo. A third lineage, Tomari-te, developed in the port town of Tomari. According to Motobu Choki, Tomari was the second largest port of the Ryukyu kingdom and often hosted ships from China and Korea. Sailors, including martial artists, taught techniques to locals, leading to the formation of Tomari-te. Its founders are said to be Ukuda Takayoshi and Teruya Kanga. Tomari-te emphasized fluid transitions, blending speed and power with natural movements. Its most famous practitioner was Matsumura Kosaku. It is worth noting that these distinctions were not always strict. Some Shuri-based practitioners studied Tomari-te or Naha-te as well, so the classification should not be seen as rigid. In 1879, modernized Japan formally abolished the Ryukyu kingdom and incorporated it as Okinawa prefecture. The fall of the kingdom endangered the survival of Todi. Most Ryukyuan aristocrats who had preserved the art lost their status, making it difficult to continue training. Okinawa saw internal strife between pro-Japan reformists, Kaikato, and conservatives, Gankoto, some even seeking Qing China's support for independence. To prevent unrest, the Meiji government implemented a policy of preserving old customs and favoring former elites. A leading figure of this era was Itosu Ankō, who studied under both Matsumura and Nagahama of the Naha-te tradition. He structured his own Todi as roughly 60% Naha-te and 40% Shuri-te. In 1905, under the new national education system, he introduced karate into schools like Okinawa Middle School, now Shuri High School, and the Okinawa Teachers College. He trained future masters such as Hanagusuku Chomo and Yabu Kensu. Itosu's student, according to some sources, Funakoshi Gichin, would go on to further spread karate. A well-educated man fluent in standard Japanese, Funakoshi succeeded in introducing karate to mainland Japan's education system before even his teacher. Due to strict language policies that banned Okinawan dialects in schools, his fluency in Japanese made him a suitable candidate to present karate to the Japanese public. Even today, mainland Japanese people struggle to understand Okinawan folk songs or the Okinawan language, Uchinaguchi. The deep meanings behind karate kata names often elude those outside Okinawa. After Okinawa was absorbed into Japan, it underwent assimilation policies that banned dialects and traditional culture, including tattoos, shamanism, music, and dance. In schools, students were forced to wear dialect tags as punishment for speaking Okinawan. This practice continued from the late Meiji era to after World War II and caused students to feel shame for their native language, leading to its decline. Okinawan soldiers in the Japanese military often faced beatings due to language barriers, which contributed to draft evasion, desertion, and emigration to places like Hawaii, Brazil, and Peru. In May 1922, Funakoshi exhibited karate at Japan's first physical education exhibition, hosted by the Ministry of Education. In June, he was invited by Jigoro Kano, founder of judo, to demonstrate at the Kodokan before over 200 black belts. However, judo practitioners, used to intense sparring, were unimpressed by karate's kata-centered performance. Funakoshi remained in Tokyo to continue teaching karate. Furthermore, through Kano's rapport with Funakoshi Gichin, Motobu Choki, Miyagi Chojun, Mabuni Kenwa, and others, and his assistance and cooperation in getting them to Tokyo, in 1934 Todi, which had been renamed Karate, was admitted to the judo division of the Dainippon Butokukai through Kano's mediation. It was the demonstrations at the Kodokan that marked the arrival of karate on the mainland and the beginning of its nationwide spread, and this became the starting point for modern karate. Although senior karate experts existed, Funakoshi was selected to lead karate's expansion on the mainland due to his education and language skills. However, some Okinawan martial artists resented this. Like Funakoshi, his teacher Itosu was also criticized. The karate he brought into schools was not pure Shuri-te from Matsumura, but a fusion with Naha-te, leading some traditionalists to disapprove of his methods. Besides Funakoshi, 3 others were instrumental in karate's spread: Miyagi Chojun, Mabuni Kenwa, and Motobu Choki, reputed as Okinawa's strongest fighter. In November 1922, at age 52, Motobu spontaneously entered a boxing versus judo exhibition match in Kyoto and knocked out a Russian boxer with a single blow. This gained national attention, and he began teaching karate in Osaka. The 4 major mainland styles are Shotokan, Funakoshi Gichin, Gōjū-ryū, Miyagi Chojun, Shito-ryu, Mabuni Kenwa, Wado-ryu, Otsuka Hironori, who merged karate with jujutsu. In 1924, Motobu Choyu, Motobu Choki's elder brother, founded the Okinawa Todi Research Club. In 1926, it evolved into the Okinawa Todi Club, bringing together top karate masters for research and training, including Hanagusuku, Motobu Choki, Kanchotoku, Chibana Choshin, Mabuni, Miyagi, and Kyoto Shigehatsu. In 1929, Funakoshi's karate club at Keio University officially changed the characters from Todi, Chinese hand, to karate, empty hand, drawing inspiration from the Buddhist concept of emptiness, kara, in the Heart Sutra. A monk from Ingakuji Temple in Kamakura is said to have recommended the change. The name was further modified to Karate-do to align with other martial arts. In 1936, a roundtable of karate masters in Naha, hosted by the Ryukyu Shimpo newspaper, formally approved the change. One motivation was the militarist atmosphere of the time, which viewed Chinese associations with suspicion. However, it's known that Hanagusuku Chomo had used the karate spelling as early as 1905. In 1934, Todi was elevated from a subcategory of jujutsu to a full department in the Dai Nippon Butokukai, the supreme martial arts organization of Japan. From 1934 to 1937, leading karate figures such as Konishi Yasuhiro, Ueshima Sanosuke, and Miyagi Chojun were awarded the prestigious title of Kyoshi, Master, officially recognizing karate as a Japanese martial art. It is unclear what kind of clothing was worn during karate practice in the Ryukyu Kingdom era, as there are no historical records on the matter. According to Chotoku Kion's explanation introduced an overview of Kenpo, the reason for training while bare-chested was to toughen the skin and to clearly become aware of the distribution of power. It is believed that this training style dates back at least to the early Meiji period, and possibly even earlier, to the time of the Ryukyu Kingdom. This custom was not limited to Shuri-te. As seen in the above-mentioned photograph of Chojun Miyagi and Shigehatsu Kuda training bare-chested, it can be considered a general practice throughout Okinawa, including Naha-te. However, During the karate demonstration held at the main hall of Shuri Castle in 1921 to welcome the Crown Prince, later Emperor Showa, photographs show participants wearing white shirt-like jackets and hakama. This was probably not a traditional karate outfit, but rather worn out of respect for the imperial household. The origin of today's karate uniform can be traced back to 1922, when the aforementioned Gichin Funakoshi gave a demonstration at the Kodokan. At that time, he purchased plain white cotton fabric from a textile shop in Kanda and hand-stitched something resembling a judo uniform himself. This is the oldest known reference to a karate uniform in existing documents. It is unclear exactly when karate uniforms became commercially available, but an advertisement for karate uniforms appeared in Karate Kenkyu in 1934, indicating that they were already being sold in the early Showa period. Since then, because the movements and training content differ from judo, the uniform has gradually been modified into its current form. Compared to a judo uniform, the fabric is thinner and lighter. Okinawa's three major karate styles are Gōjū-ryū, Uechi-ryū, and Shorin-ryū. Uechi-ryū originated from Uechi Kanbun, who taught in Wakayama from 1924 after learning Pangai-nun in Fujian. His style is heavily influenced by Chinese martial arts and emphasizes piercing techniques using fingers and toes.
ウェッジの特徴、側線蹴り、足のつま先です。
ウエチ流の鍛錬法サンチンは叩いて鍛える極めて実践的なもので、
On April 1, 1945, during World War II, American forces landed in Okinawa, leading to the deaths of over 100,000 civilians. Nearly all primary historical materials on karate were lost in the destruction. Post-war karate history relies heavily on oral tradition and testimony, with many contradictions due to the scarcity of documentation. While Japan regained stability around 1960, Okinawa remained under U.S. administration after the 1952 San Francisco Peace Treaty. The U.S. established the Ryukyu government with limited autonomy but retained ultimate control for 27 years until Okinawa's reversion to Japan in 1972. Post-war Okinawa saw debates over rejoining Japan, seeking independence, or becoming a UN trust territory. Although Okinawans held Japanese nationality, travel to and from the islands was restricted, requiring passports due to U.S. jurisdiction. In the early stages of karate's development as a sport, the form that received the most research attention was karate with protective gear. Going back a bit in history, in 1927, the Karate Research Club at Tokyo Imperial University independently devised a version of karate with protective equipment and began conducting matches. This initiative was led by Hideo Bo, later the president of the Wadokai and Japan's Minister of Finance, and others. However, Gichin Funakoshi, who was then the club's instructor, was furious about this development and resigned from his position at the university in 1929. According to early senior students such as Hironori Otsuka, founder of Wado-ryu, and Yasuhiro Konishi, founder of Shindo Jinen-ryu, Funakoshi had little knowledge or experience in kumite, sparring. Elsewhere in mainland Japan, Kenwa Mabuni, founder of Shito-ryu, and his student. Sawayama Muniomi, founder of Nippon Kempo, independently studied protective gear karate. In Okinawa, Kenchotoku began sparring training using gear at the Okinawa Prefectural Normal School. In the mainland Gōjū-ryū school, its de facto founder Gogen Yamaguchi and his top student Sonechu also advanced research in protective sparring. As each school experimented with this form of karate, a dojo was established in Kudanshida, Chiyoda Ward, Tokyo, which would later become the Renbukai of the All-Japan Karate-do Federation. This dojo inherited the karate of Toyama Kenken and is referred to below as Kanbukan. Before the war, karate's aim as a competitive discipline was primarily focused on kumite using protective gear. Between 1945 and 1955, the Okinawan karate community was largely unable to function in an organized way, leaving a vacuum. A similar situation existed in mainland Japan, where the GHQ banned all martial arts. However, since karate was not explicitly mentioned in the ban, it was able to resume practice earlier than most other martial arts. Despite the general pause in karate activities in both Okinawa and mainland Japan, an exception emerged. Kanbukan, led Yoon Hee-byung, a Korean national and top student of Toyama Kanken, continued operations. They conducted training and published karate manuals under the Kanbukan name. This dojo was located in a building owned by a Korean organization in Japan. According to karateka and researcher Hiroshi Kinjo from Okinawa, Director Yoon was a Korean national and, at the time, held a privileged status as a third-country person, which allowed these activities. Kinjo also stated that while Yoon's time in the karate world was brief, his contributions were immense, though he suspected many karate practitioners would not acknowledge that. Kanbukan was also frequented by Oyama, founder of Kyokushin karate, also of Korean descent, and Sonechu, top student of Yamaguchi Gogen of mainland Gōjū-ryū. After Japan's defeat in World War II, Korea was split into North and South. Many Koreans remained in Japan, where they were divided between capitalist and communist factions. These factions often clashed violently, with deaths and injuries reported. At the center of the capitalist faction were Oyama and Sonechu. The karate they learned proved effective in what was essentially real-world combat, not just structured sparring matches. Japanese martial arts, Budo, such as Jigoro Kano's judo and Funakoshi's karate, emphasized education and character development. However, Oyama's approach was based on bujutsu, martial arts for actual combat. His early Kyokushin dojo practiced methods similar to modern MMA, which led to mockery from traditional schools who called it street fighting karate. Eventually, rules and training systems were established, and Kyokushin became the foundation of full-contact bare-knuckle karate. The popularity of a manga based on Oyama's life catapulted Kyokushin into the public eye, leading to karate's explosive popularity in Japan. Later, Kyokushin also played a major role in the development of kickboxing, Japan's first true combat sport, started by Oyama's contemporary and disciple, Yamada Tatsuo, founder of Nippon Kenpo Karate-do. Kickboxing, a Japanese-originated sport emphasizing practicality, has its roots in Motobu Choki, Yamada Tatsuo, and Oyama's karate teachings. The three major kickboxing gyms in the Netherlands, Chakuriki, Voss Gym, and Majiro Gym, all trace their lineage to Kyokushin. Even the first non-Thai Muay Thai champion, Toshio Fujiwara, came from the Kyokushin lineage. In Japan, most local dojo practice full-contact karate. Traditional styles tend to be taught in school clubs or community centers. In 1976, the World Kickboxing Association, WKA, the oldest international kickboxing title-sanctioning body in the world, was founded in the United States by Howard Hansen, a black belt in Shorin-ryu karate, and Arnold Urquidez, the brother of Benny Urquidez, known for his appearances in Jackie Chan movies. While figures like Sonechu and Oyama continued to live in Japan after Korea's independence, some Korean karate practitioners returned to Korea. Many Koreans studied karate because, like Okinawans, Koreans under colonial rule were often forced into harsh manual labor on the Japanese mainland. they were widely discriminated against, and landlords frequently refused to rent to them. Even today, many landlords in Japan refuse to rent to foreigners. As a result, these populations form tight-knit communities, often settling in clusters near industrial workplaces. In the Kanto region, areas like Kawasaki and Tsurumi became known for such communities. Colonial-era Koreans also trained in dojos like Shotokan, and some of them returned to Korea after the war. There, they helped develop and popularize Tangsudo, Korean pronunciation of Karate-do, and Taekwondo, a fusion of karate and the Korean martial art Taekyon. If we consider the Okinawan immigrants who spread karate to Hawaii and South America as the first international wave, then Korean Tansudo represents the second wave. Even during the martial arts ban after World War II, karate in Okinawa quietly moved toward internationalization. This was largely due to U.S. soldiers stationed in Okinawa who personally sought to learn karate, while Okinawan karate masters found teaching a valuable source of foreign income. Unlike mainland Japan, Okinawa allowed karate practice from around 1947, as long as it wasn't done in public. Karate's popularity among U.S. troops led to it being taught on military bases, eventually easing the ban. Those soldiers who trained in Okinawa brought karate back to the U.S., marking the third wave of karate's international spread. Despite this growing popularity, karate in Okinawa remained disorganized. Many instructors taught from their homes, and there was no unifying organization to oversee the art's development. To address this issue, in May 1956, 4 major Okinawan styles, Uechi-ryu, Uechi-kanbun, Gōjū-ryū, Yagi-me-toku, Shorin-ryu, Chibana-choshin, and Matsubayashi-ryu, Nagamine-shoshin, formed the Okinawa Karate-do Renmei Federation, pledging unity. However, in 1963, just 7 years later, the Chibana school, Shorin-ryu, withdrew from the federation, triggering a wave of withdrawals. Right-wing post-war political heavyweight Sasakawa Ryoichi, who had significant influence in Japan's political and financial spheres, became the first chairman of the Japan Karate Federation, JKF, established in 1957. He led efforts to unify various traditional styles under one umbrella. Mainland Japan's 4 major styles and even Renbukan, formerly Kanbukan, joined, and Sasakawa played a key role in JKF gaining public foundation status in 1969. Leveraging his political and financial power, Sasakawa also pushed negotiations with Full Contact and Okinawan karate groups, laying the foundation for modern competitive karate in Japan. The JKF formed subordinate bodies such as those governing high school, junior high, and university-level competition. The JKF adopts a point-based, non-contact Sundo-mei system of competition, and school-based karate clubs mostly follow this model. However, it also accommodates groups with differing competition rules. Even the Japan Karate Association, Shotokan, though non-contact, has significantly different rules from JKF. Sasakawa reportedly tried to bring Kyokushin karate into the JKF, but Oyama resisted by relying on his close ties with a Korean Yakuza boss. In 1977, at the 4th World Karate Championship hosted by the JKF, Japanese karateka failed to pass the preliminaries. Following repeated defeats since the second Paris tournament, Oyama issued a fiery statement. The root cause of the JKF's 3 consecutive losses lies in their autistic approach, satisfied with exclusivity and outdated practices, turning a blind eye to evolving global karate. The organization has been monopolized by leaders who know nothing about karate, surrounded by people chasing wealth and power. These people have forgotten the spirit of martial arts, reducing karate to mere sport or dance. In response, Kyokushin faced increasing criticism from other schools as being brawl karate. While most of the visible disputes centered on Kyokushin, other styles also argued fiercely, debating which was strongest, which was most authentic, or whether karate was stronger than judo. At the time, all styles firmly believed in one-hit kill techniques, as karate punches capable of breaking boards or stones were believed to be deadly. Thus, karate was considered superior to grappling arts like judo, as it was thought that a striker could end a fight before being caught. From personal experience and hearsay, I'd say that judo practitioners didn't care to argue. They maintained a dignified silence and didn't engage in such debates, reflecting their status as Japan's national martial art. These fiery debates over the strongest martial art eventually cooled. Due to later events, which I'll describe later, few karateka in Japan now make such bold claims. The previously hostile karate world has moved toward mutual respect, except among splinter groups of the same lineage. As previously mentioned, during the war, the U.S. military forcibly relocated civilians to internment camps. While people were held in camps, large swaths of land were confiscated by the U.S. military. Even after Okinawa's return to Japan on May 15, 1972, many of those lands were never returned and remain U.S. bases today. Okinawans are known for their strong reverence for ancestors, but many ancestral graves were located in the confiscated areas. This led to the humiliating reality that they had to get permission from the U.S. military, who once attacked their ancestors, just to visit family graves. Sexual assaults by U.S. soldiers against locals have been reported sporadically since the Battle of Okinawa. With America's full-scale entry into the Vietnam War in 1964, many fighter jets departed from Okinawa to Vietnam. Okinawa became a key rear base, with Kadena Air Base in particular becoming a hub for B-52 bombers. Because Okinawa's climate resembles Vietnam's, it was also used as a guerrilla warfare training ground. Supplies such as bombs, gas, uniforms, and vehicles for the war effort were also stockpiled and shipped from Okinawa. Between 1964 and 1973, approximately 300,000 South Korean troops were deployed to Vietnam, the largest non-U.S. force. Some were high-ranking Tansudo practitioners, trained in Shotokan karate during colonial rule. These martial artists reportedly taught Tansudo in Vietnam. Later, some of them trained U.S. soldiers stationed in Korean bases, contributing to karate's spread in America, with help from figures like Chuck Norris. It should be noted that South Korean troops were also widely accused of atrocities during the war. Many Okinawans believe their suffering in Gōjū-ryū, Japan's only land battle, was prolonged to protect the Japanese mainland. This belief, especially among the elderly, fuels a strong anti-war sentiment. Anti-base protests erupted when Okinawan land was used as a base for American jets attacking foreign countries. Yet the mainland showed little sympathy. While Agent Orange is known to have been used in Vietnam, it was also used for training in Okinawa, contaminating soil. Over 100 U.S. soldiers later sued in U.S. courts for health problems. Drums bearing the name of Dow Chemical, a major manufacturer of Agent Orange, were discovered years later in Okinawan soil. Recently, there have been multiple incidents where carcinogenic PFAS fire retardants leaked into rivers from U.S. bases, further inflaming anti-base sentiment. However, under the Japan-U.S. Status of Forces Agreement, Japanese authorities have limited power to investigate U.S. military incidents. This agreement allows the U.S. broad control over its bases and exempts U.S. military personnel from Japanese immigration law. They can freely move between bases without passports or visas, and even crimes committed on duty fall under U.S. jurisdiction. The mainland response to Okinawan grievances is often cold. Many argue, due to its proximity to China, Okinawa must host U.S. bases, or Okinawa's economy would collapse without the U.S. military. Indeed, Okinawa has one of Japan's highest unemployment rates, and many locals work in base-related jobs. However, experts say such income constitutes only 5% of Okinawa's total income. Bases also block regional development, dividing the island, occupying central areas, and leaving the north underdeveloped. Okinawa is home to some of the world's most beautiful beaches and vast forests. Without the noise and restrictions from bases, tourism could flourish. I was shocked to see a Japanese TV program claim that base protesters were agents from China, Korea, or North Korea, paid to stir unrest. This lacked proper verification and only resulted in a warning from broadcast regulators. Even influencers from the mainland have visited protests to mock them, spreading videos on social media. Online, people frequently argue, Okinawa receives massive development subsidies. How dare they oppose the bases? But those funds are meant to narrow the gap caused by 27 years of U.S. governance, not as compensation for hosting the bases. Okinawa ranks about 15th nationally in government funding, not unusually high. Futenma Air Base is often called the most dangerous base in the world, surrounded tightly by residential areas. When I visited the area, jet noise was deafening, something words can't fully convey. On August 13, 2004, a U.S. helicopter crashed into Okinawa International University, scattering debris and damaging nearby homes and cars. Miraculously, no one was injured, but the U.S. military blocked local police and fire officials from investigating. Other incidents include a 7.7-kilo window frame falling into an elementary school. These incidents are frequent. In a government study session, one guest lecturer said, "Futenma was built in a rice field. There was nothing around. People moved there for business." But in fact, public offices, schools, inns, and shops already existed on the base land before its seizure. Residents displaced by the base had no choice but to live nearby. Even when such falsehoods are spoken, mainland media rarely demand accountability. That lecturer is now the leader of a major political party with widespread public support. Most local protesters don't demand the removal of all U.S. bases, but rather ask that the burden be shared. They plead for Japan's 70% of U.S. bases, concentrated in just 0.6% of its land, Okinawa, to be distributed more fairly. This is the greatest social issue faced by Okinawa, the birthplace of karate. Let us return to the story of the Okinawa Karate Federation, Zen-Oki Kurin, after the reversion of Okinawa to Japan. Having functioned essentially as a U.S. territory for over 20 years, Okinawa faced numerous social pressures upon its reversion, such as aligning traffic laws and currency with mainland Japan. While mainland Japan had already fully recovered thanks to the Korean War economic boom, Okinawa was just beginning to see the development of proper infrastructure and a return to everyday life. A few years later, in the 14th year of its founding, the Okinawa Karate Federation encountered a crisis that threatened the organization's very survival: the issue of participating in the National Sports Festival. Karate became an official event starting with the 1981 Shiga National Sports Festival. To participate, organizations had to join the Japan Karate Federation, JKF, a body under the Japan Sports Association, chaired by Sasakawa Ryoichi, a prominent figure in Japan's right-wing political sphere. The JKF was dominated by the four major mainland styles. At the time, the Okinawa Karate Federation was the only regional body in Japan that had not yet joined. As the largest karate organization in Okinawa and a member of the Okinawa Prefectural Sports Association, Zen-Oki Kurin could not avoid the issue. The JKF informed Zen-Oki Kurin that it would only recognize 3 Okinawan masters: Yagi Meitoku, Gōjū-ryū, Higa Yuchoku, Shorin-ryu, and Weichi Kane, Weichi-ryu, as eligible to serve as examiners for membership. All other practitioners would have to undergo examination by mainland authorities. This was seen by Okinawan practitioners as an imposition of mainland control, and they strongly objected. However, with the upcoming Kaiho National Sports Festival, the Okinawa Prefectural Sports Association lost patience and expelled Zen-Oki Kurin, deeming it inappropriate. In its place, it accepted a new federation, the Okinawa Prefecture Karate-do Federation, Ken-Kurin, led by Shorin-ryu master Shoshin Nagamine, and composed of groups such as Gōjū-ryū, Seiichi Miyazato, Shorin-ryu, Katsuya Miyahira, Yuna Higa, Matsubayashi-ryu, Shoshin Nagamine, and Motobu Udundi, Seiyu Uehara. Zen-Oki Kurin voiced strong dissatisfaction, stating, "We cannot accept that traditional Okinawan karate is to be placed under the control of the JKF." Ken Kurin's Nagami Shoshin, however, argued that We must step into the JKF and improve Okinawan karate from within, and neither side yielded. As a result, Okinawan karate was effectively split into two camps, the mainland faction and the Okinawan faction. Initially, Kenkyurin, which had joined the JKF with a strong desire to reform it from the inside, found its efforts ignored by the mainland. This issue is not merely a matter of superiority or hierarchy within martial arts, but rather a question of karate's identity as part of Okinawan culture. As a foreigner who had only viewed it from the perspective of a martial art, I came to realize that I had been overlooking the aspect of karate as a traditional culture, an art that has repeatedly faced the threat of extinction and has been desperately preserved by the people of Okinawa in its birthplace. Regarding the kata designated for the National Sports Festival, the JKF, under Executive Director Eiichi Ariguchi, had initially promised Okinawa that it would include 4 kata from the Shuri line and 4 from the Naha line. However, in practice, only the kata of the 4 major mainland styles were accepted. Even when Okinawan kata had the same names, they were not allowed in competitions. Kenkyurin submitted formal requests to the JKF, but the mainland rejected them, unwilling to allow Okinawan influence in kata designation. Thus, the Okinawan dream of spreading authentic karate to mainland Japan through participation and reform was crushed. Ironically, in recent years, Okinawa has seen a growing prevalence of the competitive karate and kata interpretations of the mainland JKF and its 4 major styles. Today, the Japanization of Okinawa is progressing, and the number of young people who can understand Uchina-aguchi, the language from the Ryukyu era, is rapidly decreasing each year. It is said that most young people cannot understand conversations in Uchina-aguchi spoken by their grandparents. Karate, which was modestly passed down in Okinawa and once faced the risk of being lost, was officially recognized as a Japanese martial art by the Butokukai. As a result, it spread not only throughout Okinawa, but also across Japan and eventually the world. However, the fact that karate from mainland Japan is now becoming the mainstream, even in Okinawa, raises legitimate concerns among those who have worked to preserve karate as a traditional Okinawan culture. They fear the disappearance of karate culture or its excessive Japanization, concerns that may be entirely reasonable. Since then, karate styles, regardless of whether they originated in mainland Japan, Okinawa, or the full contact movement, have continued to fragment. Most of these divisions stem from the death of a founder, conflicts with new leaders, or disputes over legitimate succession. Even globally recognized groups such as Shotokan, Gōjū-ryū, and Kyokushin now have multiple organizations using the same name, making it virtually impossible for outsiders to tell which ones are legitimate or mainstream. As mentioned earlier, it was once widely believed, especially among karate practitioners, that karate was the strongest of all martial arts. Influenced by manga and pop culture, this perception was also common among the general public in Japan. But everything changed in 1993. On April 30 of that year, the first K1 tournament was held, billed as a contest to determine the strongest striking martial art. The winner was Branko Cikatic, a Croatian fighter with a background in Shotokan karate. Then, on November 12th, the first UFC event was held. In the finals, Dutch Kyokushin karateka Gerard Gordeau was soundly defeated by Royce Gracie of Brazil, who won via rear-naked choke without allowing Gordeau to mount any offense. Although the first K1 tournament was won by someone from a karate background, Cikatic had also trained extensively at the renowned Dutch kickboxing gym Chakuriki. After that, Dutch-style kickboxers came to dominate the sport, and karate fighters experienced a long period where they could not win at all. Even fighters from Kyokushin and other full-contact karate styles, which prided themselves on real combat, were unable to deal with punches. Other styles barely participated at all. In MMA, karate fared even worse, revealing its lack of counters for joint locks, throws, and takedowns. Karate fighters who entered the ring or octagon without adapting to kickboxing or MMA were universally defeated. Interestingly, judoka, though also struggling to fully adapt, still managed to perform relatively well due to the versatility of judo techniques. In recent years, more karate fighters have prepared by training specifically for kickboxing and MMA, and results have improved. Ironically, fighters from traditional karate, which full-contact practitioners used to mock as dance karate, are now achieving victories in MMA by incorporating traditional techniques. Meanwhile, full-contact karate practitioners are now having more success in kickboxing than in MMA. With the rise of MMA, debates over which martial art or style is strongest have all but disappeared. Today, it's understood that the strongest fighter is not defined by style, but by how well they adapt to the rules of the competition and choose effective techniques for each situation. In Japan, where much of the strongest style discourse originated, particularly within the karate world, these fruitless arguments have largely ended. Now, the focus has shifted away from fighting prowess and toward character development and mutual respect between styles, with a collective aim to develop karate as a whole. Even Ryoichi Sasakawa's grandson, now president of the JKF, and Kyokushin's director Matsui, once seen as bitter rivals, now work cooperatively. Born in the small Ryukyu kingdom, the hand-to-hand martial art of Tode was quietly and proudly passed down through generations. Tossed by the tides of history, it evolved into karate and ultimately came to represent one of the world's great martial traditions. Its journey was more than just a martial evolution. It reflected the complex history, shifting identity, and strong will of the Okinawan people to preserve their culture. Today, karate is embraced by millions worldwide, not merely as a sport, but as a path of spiritual discipline, education, and self-expression. Yet at its heart lies the legacy of an unarmed people who refined their bodies and spirits in the face of domination and suppression. For us in the modern world, practicing karate is more than just learning to fight. It is an act of historical continuity, a way to understand the value of life and the meaning of peace. Japan B is a channel that randomly shares information about lesser-known aspects of Japanese culture, spanning across various genres. He is in a photo with a lineup of distinguished figures representing the Japanese martial arts world at the time, including Kyokushin karate founder Oyama, his master So, Kimura Masahiko's master Ushijima, and others. Sawai has an incredible martial arts background, with a 5th dan in judo and a 4th dan in kendo and iaido. In his prime, Sawai fought an old man who was once praised as the best master in China and was defeated as if he were a child. Since then, he trained under that man and brought the martial art back to Japan. At the time, Kyokushin karate was the most powerful brand in Japan, but Sawai's students who learned Chinese martial arts from China fought against top Kyokushin fighters in a match with their faces exposed. Among them was Matsui Shoke, the current head of the Matsui School of Kyokushin. The result was an unexpected development. When Japan entered the Meiji era, it actively adopted Western culture and aimed to leave Asia and join Europe, regarding the old and backward civilizations of Asia, as well as Japan's own traditional culture, as inferior. In the flow of this movement, Japanese martial arts once fell into decline. However, with Japan's victory in the First Sino-Japanese War, the ideology of enriching the country and strengthening the military gained momentum. As a result, the Dai Nippon Butokukai was established to gather and unify the various schools of Japanese martial arts. Japanese martial arts were revived once more. As Japan plunged into the Pacific War, the Dai Nippon Butokukai was placed under government control and began to strengthen its role in supporting the war regime. It was during this very time that a high-ranking member of the Dai Nippon Butokukai contributed an article to the organization's official publication, Butoku. From this article, we can clearly see the attempt to spread the influence of martial arts to all Japanese citizens. But what was the government's intention at the time? How were Japanese martial arts utilized under wartime conditions, and what was expected of them? It is widely known among martial arts enthusiasts overseas that the Dai Nippon Butokukai, originally founded to promote and honor martial arts, was dissolved by the GHQ after the war. However, what happened between the lines of that history remains largely unknown. The contributions in Butoku offer insight into why the organization came to be dissolved. For those interested in Japanese military history and the history of martial arts, this is a must-see.
The Dai Nippon Butokukai was founded to bring together modern Japanese martial arts, promote martial arts, preserve ancient martial arts, integrate techniques with other styles of competition, and honor martial artists. During the Pacific War, it came under government control, but after the war it was dissolved by GHQ, who deemed its nationalism dangerous. What was the Dai Nippon Butokukai that led martial arts to a position unparalleled in other countries and developed techniques to an unparalleled level?
It is no exaggeration to say that Kano Jigoro, the founder of Kodokan Judo, is one of the most important figures in modern Japanese martial arts. Nearly all Japanese martial arts have adopted a rank system, and nearly all Japanese unarmed martial arts require the use of uniforms, both of which were invented by Kano. By removing dangerous techniques from jujutsu and minimizing the time lost due to long rest due to injury, it became possible to improve skills in a short period of time, and it became a subject studied in schools. Although judo is an elite martial art, what is less known is that in the early days, students competed in inter-style matches against wrestlers and boxers from overseas, and that Kano himself competed in inter-style matches against jujutsu practitioners.
The Dai Nippon Butokukai awarded people who contributed greatly to martial arts. The lowest title is Renshi, but simply receiving the title of Renshi from the Dai Nippon Butokukai is proof that the person has first-rate skills in the martial art. The highest title is Hanshi. Some of the early Hanshi were real samurai just a few years before. We will introduce some of the Hanshi who possess top-class skills in each martial art, with a brief profile for each martial art.
He is known as Mas Oyama, the founder of Kyokushin Kaikan, but he was the first to seek a path to mixed martial arts after the war. He was one of the first striking martial artists to adopt modern weight training. Many of the episodes in the manga based on Mas Oyama are fictional. He resonated with the ideas of General Ishihara, the mastermind behind the Manchurian incident. He learned karate from Cho, who later became a leader of Koreans in Japan, and he had close ties with the bosses of the two major Korean Yakuza gangs in Japan. It is not widely known that Oyama looked up to Kimura Masahiko, who was widely regarded as the strongest fighter in actual combat, as his older brother, that he had connections with Kimura Masahiko's teacher, Ushijima Tatsukuma, and elders of various schools of karate, that he studied under Yamaguchi Gogen, the de facto founder of Hondo Gōjū-ryū karate, that there was a feud between Kimura Masahiko and Rikidozan, who is said to be the father of Japanese professional wrestling, that he was the model for Ryu in the video game Street Fighter, and that Kimura Masahiko witnessed Oyama in actual combat.